Hello, and welcome to the second in a new round of Q&As the Arizona Capitol Times has started doing. We postponed or delayed our regular weekly print Q&A because of the pandemic and the inability to be physically in the room with people, but have decided to bring these back as a way to continue connecting to folks in our Capitol community. I'm Julia Shumway. I cover the state senate for the Arizona Capitol Times, and I'm joined today by Stephanie Parra, the executive director of All in Education. Stephanie is well known to many of you in the Capitol community for her work on education policy. She served as the government relations director for the Arizona Education Association for a number of years before starting All in Education this year. And so, Stephanie, to start off, what made you decide you wanted to form this new organization?
Yeah, so All in Education came to be. It was actually our founder, Luis Avila, put together this idea about a year and a half ago when he started looking at the makeup of the governing bodies of the decision-making tables in education, who's actually making decisions on behalf of all students. And it's really important when we think about advancing equity in the state of Arizona that we have communities that are impacted by equity at the table. And so when you look at the State Board of Education, the State Charter Board of Education, and even the Board of Regents, less than 10% of the seats are represented by Latino individuals. And just in the K-12 system, we have 46% of our student population is Latino. And so there is a significant gap in representation of the community at the decision-making table. And so All in Education was formed to develop a pipeline of leaders that will be ready to sit at these tables and provide the community's perspective and help the state of Arizona truly make advance equity by making decisions around policies, practices, and programs that are grounded in ensuring that these new ideas will not bring harm to the community, but will actually create opportunity for Latino students and families.
And you are, of course, both Latina, and you're currently the president of the Phoenix Union High School District Governing Board. Was that, or does your board represent the Latino community well? What have you learned from your experiences in this role?
Yeah, certainly. So we're a 7-member board. 3 of our 7 members are Latino and represent the community. Phoenix Union, I think when you look at the local level, local governing boards should represent their local communities. And even our board is short on that because when you look at our population, over 80% of our student population is Latino. But the 3 of us are pretty loud and vocal and are really strong advocates for the students in the communities within our boundaries. So we have we've been able to be really productive and aggressive in Phoenix Union because we are unapologetic about advocating for the families that we represent, implementing practices that have created opportunity for our students, and we're seeing the highest graduation rates in the state, the lowest dropout rates in the state. And when you compare us to other large urban systems, we are doing really well. And I think it's because we have embedded this lens of living out equitable decision-making practices within our system. And so if for me, this is about learning from what we've done well and where we have room to grow, because certainly we are not perfect. And how can we take what we've learned at Phoenix Union and kind of scale up and share some best practices across the state. And with All in Ed now, I think that we really have an opportunity to expand the effort and really highlight, because there are certainly systems who do things really well. And in the midst of this pandemic, one of the things that we've heard is, from families, just trying to navigate school closures and all of that. One of the things that we heard from parents and families is lack of communication, for example. That's just one thing that systems needed to improve on. And being able to kind of learn directly from school system leaders on what they attempted to do, and what gaps presented themselves. That's how we learn, creating a community of shared practice.
Right. Has there, now that your new role gives you a chance to interact more with districts and education leaders around the state, have there been any particular stories that have stood out to you as a district or a school or a superintendent who's doing just a phenomenal job at handling this current crisis?
Yeah, I think the common theme is that this is hard for everyone, right? Like it's hard for system leaders, it is hard for parents and families. But we certainly, along the way, as we were engaging in these community conversations during the months of March and April, we heard really several highlights across the community. I like to spotlight the Tucson Unified School District. I like to highlight Tucson Unified School District because they actually have their Mexican American Studies program, has their own kind of family advisory council. And these parents are essentially like site leaders at their school. And I was able to participate. I came into a Zoom meeting with like 25 Spanish speaking moms who are all site leaders on their school sites, and have been communicating. We're communicating with each other on a weekly basis. Every Tuesday night they came together and had conversations around what their challenges were for the week and who needed what resources. And they really just created this community of support for each other. And that was one of the things when I talk about lack of communication. The parents who didn't have access to that kind of a tool or a resource really felt alone in navigating how to support their kids at home. We heard by the end of our outreach campaign, which was early, this was I think May 14th, we ended up having a creative partnership with Univision Television, and we held a live phone bank, and we had parents it was one line, one phone number that they could call, and we were on the other end of the phone. And by the time it was May 14th, these parents hadn't spoken to a live person in almost 8 weeks, and they were really, really frustrated. Had a lot of questions. I had parents in tears with the level of frustration because they just didn't know what was going on. Nobody would answer their phone calls. Nobody, they would tell me the school says that they send stuff, but like I don't have email. I don't get access to email. And so one of the things that we learned is that when you're talking about low-income families, communities of color, and again, it's really our low-income community that's struggling here. We have to be creative in how we communicate with them. And so the systems that kind of rolled up their sleeves and got creative were really successful. And the systems that did not have an effective outreach plan and communications plan were not successful. And so those are some of the lessons learned along the way. We actually have a report coming out on July 8th with all of our key findings and our recommendations moving forward. But that's ultimately, that was a big one. The communication is really, really a big one. As we are in a space right now where we have an opportunity, what this pandemic has done is it's really exposed all of the inequities in our school system that have been there all along. Access to technology and Wi-Fi, you know, language barrier, lack of communication, lack of access to a device or email, etc. All of these things are barriers that families have already been experiencing. But the pandemic kind of put everything out there, and it really highlighted the inequity in the system. And I think we are kind of at a crossroads right now where we have an opportunity to we have a real opportunity to redesign, reimagine how we support communities that need our help, because we all kind of have this shared lived experience now, right? If you think about struggling with technology, how many times have you gotten on a Zoom call and couldn't connect? Just this morning, I had a challenge, right? Like I couldn't get audio on Zoom this morning. So now imagine being a parent who is being told, like, you know, here's the laptop, here's the software, go teach your kid at home. And they're like, what's a laptop? Like, what software what language are you speaking? And they don't understand. And so the level of overwhelm that they felt, we all kind of experienced that together. We have this shared lived experience, and I think we have an opportunity, because we have experiences together, to come together and reimagine how we do school. Let's think about how the school systems are being asked to be social service agencies. Let's be honest, the first thing with Phoenix Union, it was a really hard vote for me to take to close schools. I struggled. I will be vulnerable and say I cried before that vote. It was really hard, knowing that we were going to potentially shut out 30,000 families from access to food, access to the only kind of shelter that they have, access to the reliable internet connection and resources that they have. That's difficult. That is heavy, right? And even our employees, we have classified employees who are minimum wage workers. Like, you know, we have, $12 an hour doesn't get you very far these days. And so there was a lot of heaviness around making these decisions. And now that we've lived this all together, I think we really have an opportunity to come together and say, what kind of a future do we want for Arizona? How can we rebuild and make sure that we are lifting all boats up, that we are not just picking and choosing who becomes a winner in our system, but that we are truly providing opportunity for all kids to thrive.
And prior to getting involved in education policy, you had worked as a children's advocate with Child Help. What made you decide, it seems like you've always been passionate about helping kids, but what made you decide that education was the next step?
Yeah. So I started off after college. I was a social worker, and I was working as a victim advocate. I was working alongside detectives and child protective services. Essentially, I was a social worker on the case, providing family resources and things like that. And it got really hard. After 2 years of working alongside on investigations, that's really, really heavy work. And for me, it was emotionally draining. And I went into training, actually. I started training mandatory reporters of suspected abuse. So I started training teachers, nurses, social workers, other folks who worked with kids, like in schools. I would go into schools and train them on the mandatory reporting laws. And, you know, that is, in that role, I really, really saw how critical educators are in the lives of kids, especially in the lives of kids that I was working with. Vulnerable populations, kids who the only kind of advocate that they have, or the only mentor or role model that they have could be their teacher or the school counselor or the nurse. Sometimes it's the lunch lady or the janitor, right? Like that they build a relationship with, that security professional. So these individuals really, that experience really showed me how critical the school system is for students. And I thought actually that I wanted to be a teacher, and I went and shadowed, I believe it was like a second grade classroom, and I ran out of there as fast as I could because little ones were not for me, but I really, really enjoyed working with adult learners. And so I ended up going back to ASU, and I got my master's degree in higher and post-secondary education. So I studied college students and how they succeed or don't succeed. And in that experience as a graduate student, that's when I really started kind of seeing the connections between my personal experience as a student. As someone from rural Arizona, you know, I was born and raised in Yuma. And I went to ASU on a full ride scholarship. But my first semester, I almost lost my scholarship. I struggled to keep the 2.5 grade average that I needed to maintain my scholarship. And I think the transition from high school to college is really hard. And so there was a lot of things for me that made that I actually, sorry, I ended up finding a network at ASU that supported my learning, and I turned it around, and I was able to graduate on time, and I kept my scholarship. But that's not, you know, that is not the average story for a lot of students. Students like me tend to drop out. We don't tend to complete college. We graduate at complete college at 10%, right? And so that is that's really when I started kind of making connections about becoming really passionate about opportunity, and how education is for me the way out of poverty. It was a lesson of value that was instilled in me very early on by my father, and something that I have a very firm belief that I hold. And I think we have an opportunity right now to leverage education as a way to provide opportunity for all students in Arizona.
Great. Well, I think we'll go ahead and end it there. Thank you so much for participating in this new experiment, and
Yeah,
good luck. We'll keep an eye out on that report coming out in July.
awesome. Thank you so much.